Welcome to Ajatella, the show that transitions you from think to change. And we have brought back Linda Mwakisha.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming again. And we really appreciate that you're back. And we are speaking about stepping up. The first segment was on how to come up the staircase of life. You know, how do you go up the corporate ladder, the social ladder? And today we're talking about progression and regression in the same staircase. And so the first question I would ask is that how do we deal with stagnation, you know, in the staircase of life? Maybe someone is watching us and they've stagnated in life.
Yeah.
How do you prevent that? And what can they do to push themselves forward?
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I think the first thing that comes to mind with that question is to fight fear. Fear paralyzes us. We could have the ability, we could have everything that we need to move forward, but there's something that's telling us that we can't. Something that's keeping us from taking that risk. Maybe we've taken the risks before and they didn't work out to our advantage, but you have to keep fighting that fear. You have to keep, and it's not something that you do once. You have to keep telling yourself, okay, I can push forward, I can keep going. So it looks good, right? But it can be better. So let me go ahead and push myself to do that.
You know, you've just mentioned about better, and one of our episodes was on growing into better. And one of the things we talked about is that the enemy of better is good. Yeah. You know that if you're stagnating, you're at the level of good, and congratulations for that. Yeah. But there is better. Yeah. You know, in the staircase of life, there's always room in the staircase of life. You can always have one more step. You can always go forward one more time. And maybe if you're watching us and you're wondering, you know, I've been at the same level for so long, what do I do? You need to, as Linda says, push yourself forward because life is about progress. Right. So you never really get to the top because you keep adding and growing into that. Yeah. So what about the feeling of complacency? Because fear is one of them, as you've mentioned. But what about complacency? What about the person who, you know, is just complacent and they think, I've really done well for myself, but could there be more? So what do we tell the complacent individual?
Yeah. And I would say that complacency is that good. You're better and you're good, right? But we're shooting for excellent, right? We're hoping to live excellent lives. We've been put here to do something that's not just good, but excellent. So I would use that as motivation. I would use that as a reminder to get out of bed every morning and just try harder, push harder. If you've gotten to a certain level, it's because you can and because you can do better. You just have to keep stretching yourself. We've talked about discomfort before, we did in the last segment. And that's where that discomfort comes in. Because if you're comfortable, you're taking care of your family, you're earning a right amount of money, whatever that is, right? You can do better. So push yourself. And as we all do, it's hard to do. It's not something that you want to do every day, and you have to keep reminding yourself to do it. Just get it in your mind that you can do better than what you're doing right now. At any point.
There's something you've said that's so precise. That good is fine, but we're shooting for excellence. Yeah. You know that at the end of the day, until you are excellent at the thing that you do. And I love if you break down the word excellence, it comes from the word excel. So are you excelling in what you do? Yeah. Because excellence is a virtue. And I personally, and even in the book, we describe excellence as the point that no one can do it better than you can. You know, if you're cleaning the office, no one can clean better than you. You know, if you're making hair and that's what you do, no one can outdo you. You know, and the person who is excellent is so good at what they do that even if, God forbid, something happens to you, the people around you can conspire to bring you back. Let's say you're working somewhere, they would rather conspire and add salary or do a counter offer because of the level of excellence you have. So one of the things that we've talked about is complacency, but there's also regression. Right. You know, there's stagnation. There are people who are stagnant in the staircase of life, but there are also people regressing. That slowly by slowly, I was somewhere, but I'm no longer there. You know, of course, COVID has hit all of us, but there are people who are even regressing without that sector, you know, without that affecting them. It's either in the mind or in their heart or even in their personality. What do we tell the person regressing in the staircase of life?
Yeah, I think you need to ask yourself a few questions. And this is, same across the board. Everything you're doing, whether you are progressing, whether you're stagnating or even regressing, you have to keep asking yourself these questions. Where am I? What am I doing? How am I going about this? What is my goal, right? And are these goals that I'm setting, are they small? Am I limiting myself, right? It's better to dream big, and and they say, you can shoot for the stars and land in the sky, or something of that sort, right? Instead of not shooting at all, right? So I would say to them, you need to keep asking yourself these questions. And then the other thing is to ask yourself who you're surrounding yourself with, right? Are the people around you challenging you? Are the people around you progressing themselves? Because if those are the ones that you have around you, chances are you'll have to wake up yourself and take a look and see, what do I need to do? Because I can't remain here if everyone around me is progressing and is doing better for themselves in whatever way, really. It doesn't have to be your career. It's in everything.
It's very interesting, what you say is that you have to look around you, because the thing about the staircase of life is that most likely you'll be at the same level as your friends.
Right.
If you think about your 5 closest friends or the people you interact with most, you'll probably be at the same level. So if they're stagnating, I tell you, you're stagnating as well. If they're progressing, I think you're progressing. And if they're regressing, you're regressing as well. So be very careful about surrounding yourself with people who are progressing, because what that happens is that, and we talked about treating people in the staircase of life, you might be regressing not knowing, but simply because your friends or the people around you are regressing. Maybe there's a habit that you've picked up, and now you're dealing with that habit, so your energy is taken up by that, and you no longer even progress, but now you're just regressing, and that habit or that issue is taking up a time. And there's something that I'd want to also bring out, is that sometimes people pass you in the staircase of life. Maybe, you're stagnated, and all of a sudden, someone who was 5, 6, 7 steps behind you has slowly caught up, and now they're getting over, and they're actually passing you. Or maybe you're regressing, and now you're met with a person who you didn't even think, So what do we tell the person who is either progressing or regressing, and now they're feeling a bit undermined because they're at the level where they never thought they would be? What do we tell them?
There's always room for growth, right? And even in regressing, you learn something that you hadn't maybe the first time around, that you are on that staircase. So I think the first thing is that you realize that this is what is happening, and then take initiative to keep moving forward. It might mean many things. You change your budget. It might mean that you go back to school, which is not easy to do. It might mean that you change what you do after work. You have your 9 to 5, but then what do you do with your 5 to 9, right? Where does that go? How do you spend that time to get better, to not just to go up, but also to make sure that you're progressing in a way that, I guess, takes over from where you are, but to ahead. You're going above and beyond what you were doing even before you regressed. So I would say just look at your lifestyle, peer it in, and recalibrate, see what's going on inside you, and make sure that you're pushing yourself.
Those are really key points, because sometimes we feel or we think that all is lost. So if you're watching us at home and maybe you've stagnated in the staircase of life, the last 2 years have been very difficult, and you feel like you don't have much to show for it, there is hope. That's the information that we're giving you today, that you can actually progress, that you can pick up the pieces and say, you know what, I have gone down enough. I have regressed enough. Now I take personal responsibility. And the thing about Ajatella, we push for personal responsibility. And most of the episodes are about what you can do. It's not about what someone else can do for you, but what can you do for yourself. In Kiswahili, we call it kujita mkutano. That's what we're pushing for. That you need to call yourself for a meeting and say, I've been stagnated for 10 years. Maybe I'm at the same level for 10 years of my career, or the business has remained the same. But what can I do next? So even as we begin to tie up our thoughts, one of the things that is very critical is just preventing that from happening again. Because the rise and fall of great men, there's so many people who have gone up the ladder, and then unfortunately they have just tumbled down. So how do we prevent that? Even as you hit your mark, maybe you're really progressing. What do you need to watch so that you don't fall back?
Number 1, humility.
Wow.
Humility is key. Just because you've achieved doesn't mean that you forget where you came from, right? I like to write in a journal, and I would suggest maybe even challenge other people to do the same. It's not easy to do it, but jot down the achievements, maybe the regrets, when you fell back, when again you achieved. Jot those down, and every so often take a look, go back in time and read and see what you were writing about 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. I think that's important to keep us humble, to see where you came from, to see how much you've achieved, and go forward from there. The other thing I would say is read a lot, read widely, read everything, not just novels or not just a certain kind, but read from history to maybe geography. I don't know. Read whatever it is that could expand your horizons. It doesn't have to be in your field necessarily. Just go out there and read. What I would also like to add to that is we spend a lot of time on our phones, and this is almost like an easy catch. Is there any way that it's possible for us to mind who we have on our news feeds on social media? Wow. Right? So if you're looking to grow, or you think you've stagnated, if even the people that you see on your news feeds should be those that inspire you and motivate you and challenge you. It's something that we do subconsciously. Even you just find yourself on your phone and you're scrolling. While it's great to catch up with your family and your friends on social media, and it's great to laugh, comedians are great, what else can you add to that docket of yours? Who can you take a look at? Who can you listen to? Is it Ajatella? Is it other shows and other such programs that keep you motivated and challenged? I think would be a good start.
Wow, you've said so many good things, and even as we begin to wind up, one of the things that we want to really push forward is that it's your responsibility. If you are regressing in the staircase of life, don't sit and complain, because that's the instinct, the human instinct to blame and say, I would have done better, but it didn't work at my job. I would have done better, but the business didn't work out. Even I tried. I would have done better, but my family isn't supportive, or culture didn't allow me to do X, Y, and Z. But it is your responsibility to progress in the staircase of life. So don't sit and sulk and say, if only I would have gotten X, Y, Z, I would be 2 steps ahead. Take responsibility today. Maybe you didn't have the best background. Maybe you didn't grow up, in the best environment. But you have the chance. You have the choice. It's a personal responsibility to progress in life. So don't blame anyone. Take the next steps. Step up in the staircase of life. It's your decision. That's my parting shot. What's yours?
My parting shot would be that you have everything you need right now to move up on that step. It might not seem like it, but if you give it a thought, if you take some time off, rest even, and think about what it is that you want to do, there's something that you can do in this very moment to progress to the next, whether it's 1 inch of a step. There's always something that you can do to go from where you are to where you want to be. And keep those dreams in mind, keep that mindset of personal responsibility going, and you'll definitely move forward in some way, shape, or form.
Wow, thank you. The conversation goes on. Some of the things we're talking about are in the book, Secrets of the Race. I think she has her copy as well. So the number on your screen is just how you can get the book, and you can be able to call and find out. And we really thank you for watching Ajatella from Think to Change. Good evening.
Good evening.